There was a moment in this tournament that nobody planned for. Not FIFA, not the television executives, not the managers who spent months preparing their teams. On June 15th, Spain arrived at the World Cup as European champions. And one of the strongest sides on the planet. 90 minutes later, they walked away frustrated after failing to score against Cape Verde, a nation of just over 500,000 people, a country competing in only its second World Cup. On its own, the result was a remarkable football story, but over the first week of this tournament, something larger has been unfolding, across different cities, different teams, and different situations. Players and federations have repeatedly pushed back against the structure surrounding this World Cup. Some of those confrontations have been public, others have happened quietly behind the scenes. Yet together, they point toward the same conclusion. The tournament FIFA designed is not always the tournament participants are experiencing 5 different incidents, 5 different forms of resistance. And all of them reveal a growing tension at the heart of the biggest World Cup in history. The first revolt came from one of football's biggest stars. After helping Brazil secure a result against Morocco, Vinicius Junior was expected to complete a routine obligation, a halftime interview. For broadcasters, it was standard procedure. For FIFA, it was part of the tournament's commercial framework. For Vinicius, it was something else entirely. He refused. Reports quickly spread that a fine could follow. The response was simple. Brazil would rather pay than participate. The incident immediately became bigger than a single interview because many players already feel football's calendar is stretched beyond reasonable limits. More matches, more travel, more media obligations, more commercial commitments, less recovery, less control. Vinicius became the first player at this World Cup to openly challenge one of those obligations, and the reaction from fans was telling. Many didn't criticize him. They understood exactly why he did it. This wasn't just about a microphone. It was about where football ends and the business of football begins. What makes this incident particularly interesting is that it arrived at a moment when football's relationship with its biggest stars is already changing. Modern players have more influence than any generation before them. They speak directly to millions of supporters through social media. They build global brands independent of clubs, leagues, and governing bodies. 20 years ago, refusing a media obligation would have been seen as a major scandal. Today, many supporters view it differently. They see athletes who are increasingly willing to challenge systems they believe no longer serve them. Whether people agree with Vinicius or not, his decision reflected a broader shift happening across professional sport. The most powerful institutions are no longer the only voices shaping the conversation. Then came Cape Verde. The draw against Spain instantly became one of the stories of the tournament, but the significance goes beyond football. FIFA's expansion to 48 teams was designed to bring more nations into the soft. World Cup critics worried it would create more mismatches. Instead, Cape Verde delivered the opposite message. Spain dominated possession. Spain created chances, yet they couldn't find a way through. Cape Verde defended with extraordinary discipline and belief. Their goalkeeper produced one save after another. By full time, the underdogs had earned something far bigger than a point. They had exposed one of the hidden realities of this tournament. Every team is dealing with travel demands unlike anything seen before at a World Cup. Multiple countries, multiple climates. Constant movement, adaptation has become almost as important as talent. Cape Verde's achievement wasn't simply resisting Spain, it was proving that smaller nations can survive the challenges of this expanded format just as effectively as traditional powers. But then another form of resistance emerged, not from one team, not from one player, and from dozens of players across the tournament. Before the World Cup began, athletes raised concerns about extreme temperatures expected in several host cities. Their request was straightforward: stronger protection, longer cooling breaks, independent monitoring of dangerous conditions. Instead, FIFA maintained its existing approach. Cooling breaks remained limited, broadcast schedules remained untouched. The debate quickly became one of the most controversial issues of the opening week. Supporters of FIFA argued that measures were already in place. Critics argued those measures were driven as much by television requirements as by player welfare. The result was a growing divide between the governing body and some of the athletes competing in its tournament. Whether FIFA's policies are right or wrong is almost secondary. The fact that so many players felt compelled to challenge them tells its own story. The heat debate also highlights a challenge that future World Cups may face more often. Climate conditions are becoming harder to predict. Tournament organizers must balance television audiences, commercial commitments, and player welfare at the same time. That balancing act becomes increasingly difficult when temperatures reach levels that concern athletes and medical professionals. The opening week of World Cup 2026 may therefore be remembered as more than a discussion about cooling breaks. It may become an early test case for how football adapts to a changing environment. And if similar conditions continue appearing in future tournaments, this conversation is unlikely to disappear anytime soon. If the previous revolts were about football, Iran's situation went far beyond football. Their World Cup campaign became one of the most unusual stories of the tournament. Visa disputes, administrative complications, travel restrictions, questions over officials, questions over supporters. While other teams focused entirely on preparing for matches, Iran found itself navigating issues that had little to do with tactics or training. Yet despite those challenges, they still took the field. They still competed. And that persistence became its own form of resistance. FIFA promotes the World Cup as a celebration of global unity. Iran's experience highlighted the gap that can exist between that ideal and reality. For many observers, it became one of the clearest examples of how geopolitics can shape a football tournament long before kickoff. And then there is the final revolt, the quietest one, the broadest one, the revolt against the format itself. World Cup 2026 was designed to be bigger than every edition before it. More teams, more matches, more countries, more football. But expansion always creates consequences. Coaches are discussing travel as much as tactics, and players are discussing recovery as much as opponents. Sports scientists are discussing logistics as much as performance. The tournament has become an enormous test of endurance, and while every team accepts those conditions, many are also questioning them. The World Cup has never demanded this much movement across such vast distances. The challenge isn't simply winning matches, it's surviving 6 weeks of constant adaptation. None of these revolts are identical. A superstar refusing a media obligation, Cape Verde shocking Spain, players challenging heat protocols, Iran navigating extraordinary circumstances, teams questioning the demands of the expanded format, different stories, different causes, different consequences, yet they all point toward the same thing, a growing gap between FIFA's vision of this World Cup and the reality experienced by the people inside it. The remarkable thing is that football itself remains brilliant. The goals are still arriving. The upsets are still happening. New heroes are still emerging. The magic hasn't disappeared. If anything, it feels stronger than ever. But alongside that magic is a conversation FIFA cannot fully control. A conversation about player welfare, about logistics, about commercial influence, about what the future of football should look like. The first week of World Cup 2026 may ultimately be remembered for more than results. It may be remembered as the moment participants began openly questioning the system around them. The question now is whether these revolts will create change, or whether they will simply become another chapter in the long history of football's biggest machine carrying on exactly as before. But before we bring these stories together, it's important to recognize something. None of these incidents have stopped the tournament. The matches continue, the stadiums remain full, millions of people are still watching around the world. That is precisely why these stories matter. They are not signs of a World Cup collapsing. They are signs of a World Cup evolving. The competition is growing faster than at any point in its history, and whenever something grows this quickly, tension is inevitable. The question is not whether problems will emerge. The question is how the institutions running the tournament respond when they do.